to the Popish Plot. I'm Mike.
I'm Jessica.
And I'm Nate.
It's Theology Thursday, and today's plot is Narwhals.
Woo! Narwhals!
Narwhal.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
probably
that's enough of that.
with.
That's enough of that. So,
They're the unicorns of the sea.
they are the unicorns of the sea. Now, May 23rd is the annual observance of Narwhal Day. Now, attentive viewers will notice that we did not put out a Narwhal Day video this year, which is mostly my own fault. But we're coming back to it now. Now, Narwhal Day is a glorious day in celebration of and sympathy with the narwhal. Now, many viewers still don't believe that the narwhal exists.
But they would be wrong.
I don't know. I've heard some people in this very room express doubts about the narwhal.
That's fair, I did do that.
I mean, after all, it does seem preposterous. You're telling me that there's a small whale that has a unicorn horn?
Well, it's a tooth, actually.
I've never seen one at a zoo.
I don't think they do good in captivity.
They like very, very cold water.
That's fair.
So the narwhal is a magnificent example of just how bat guano crazy is God's creation.
I don't think you're allowed to call it that.
I just did.
It doesn't seem like a positive churchy thing to say.
I think it's a very positive churchy thing to say. Okay, truth is stranger than fiction. How's that? So there are, swimming in the Arctic Ocean, small whales that have, even though it is a tooth, for all the world it looks like a unicorn horn. And in medieval Europe and early modern Europe, it was actually regarded as a unicorn horn, kept in all sorts of Wunderkammer, cabinets of curiosity, and even ground down as an antidote to various poisons.
Yes, but I think we established when we did things for Lent and Fridays, old Europe was not very good with telling what an animal is. I mean, a capybara is not a fish. Nor is a barnacle goose.
Or a woodchuck.
If we were
Woodchucks were never thought to be
No,
fish.
not woodchuck. It was muskrat.
Muskrat.
in Detroit, a muskrat is a fish.
In Quebec, a beaver was.
So, a narwhal is, to my mind, a great appeal to beauty, one of the three great transcendentals. But it's also an occasion to reflect upon the care that we each need to take for our common home. On care for our common home.
Now, did you read this one this time? Unlike, the one when I said we were talking about the Pope's writing and you're like, that sounds good. I should read it someday.
I had insufficient notice before that. Yes, I've read this, though.
It gave you a week. It had like 20 pages.
A week. Pope Francis is many things, most of them good. Brief is not one of them. Yes, I read Laudato Si when it first came out in 2015.
Okay.
But the key here is, a lot of times, we put our own politics above church teaching. Because the church has been very clear that we have a responsibility to care for the earth.
Yes.
So, way back in Genesis, before the fall, Adam is charged to till and keep the garden.
And name things.
And to name things. I wonder how he came up with aardvark. Except, of course, he didn't, because he was probably naming things in non-English, but nevertheless.
Yes, and that it's probably a proto-aardvark that had a completely different name.
A yardvark?
I don't know. I mean,
Aardvark.
An anteater would be easy. I call this ant. What's it doing? It's eating it. All right.
And those ants seem to be saluting each other. I'll call them army ants. What's an army? So, the language, the Hebrew, keep and till. Again, I don't know Hebrew. But the same language is used later to describe the work of the Levites. The proto-deacons. So, Adam had, before the fall, a priestly responsibility for caring for the earth. For shepherding God's creation, which we know is good. And so, we have a responsibility, each of us, to be environmentalists.
Absolutely. There's that line that a lot of people get wrong about how God gave them dominion over the earth. People hear dominion and they kind of think that means, woo, I get to do whatever I want.
Push it around and whatnot.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. But that's really not what God was talking about. Mm-mm. yes, they were in a position of authority over the land. But your authority is only as good as you are an authority.
Jesus has dominion over all of us, but the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve. So, I'm not saying that we need to embrace the most radical anti-human environmental ideas out there, because there are a lot of people who try to push the crazy notion that in order to be environmentally responsible, we have to severely restrict human reproduction. We have to pump human bodies full of all sorts of chemicals so that they, contracept and eventually become sterile. This is not at all our responsibility to the earth. But we do have to look at creatures as creatures. Not things that we can just use, not as commodities, but as God's creatures. And when we think about how we use land, we have to think about the fact that God created it. He created it good. Yes, he wants us to use it for human flourishing, but that doesn't mean that we should, in a phrase, pave paradise and put up a parking lot.
That's fair.
It doesn't mean that we should just be chopping down the entire Amazon rainforest, for charcoal. It's not a political thing. It's not right and it's not left. It's Catholic. And a lot of people think, as we'll discuss on other occasions more in depth, that they're more Catholic than the Pope. And they take their personal objection to Pope Francis and think that that means, Catholics don't have to be environmentalists. But we have to remember that Pope Emeritus Benedict, and we all love Pope Emeritus Benedict, he was known as the Green Pope. Because during his 8 years, he called time and time again for responsible stewardship of the earth by men.
Also, you can make very good, green beer making. As someone from Germany, it's like, you feed the spent grains to the cows, and it's a very nice ecosystem.
It's a virtuous circle.
That results in lots of lager.
Which is an inherent good.
And beef. Steaks.
Another
sausage.
More
inherent goods. See, it's not that we're not supposed to use things. It's not that we should all go vegan. It's that, God forbid, we should never stop drinking.
Usually we put the little disclaimer about, if you have a problem, you should.
Fair enough.
There's a point at which everybody should reasonably stop drinking, but...
I mean, you can die from too much water.
Exactly. All things in moderation. And as our friend Santa Claus would say, all things in moderation, even moderation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he is a magical toy maker, so...
He's something. So, I invite you to look beyond the labels that poison most of our public discourse. Environmentalism is not progressive. Care for the earth is not incompatible with being politically conservative. This is our home. This is the world that God created for us. We here at the Popish Plot are big fans of science fiction and like the idea of traveling the stars and living on other worlds. But for right now, this is where God has planted us, and this is where he wants us to bloom. And he's made a world of such magnificence that it includes whales that have a unicorn horn.
And while our dominion gives us the ability to burn it all down...
And to slaughter and eat.
Yeah.
We do love acts.
Our responsibility
we should,
requires that we do so only as is necessary. Only as is absolutely necessary.
That's an excellent way to put it. Use things as is necessary, not just for the sake of using them. So, we invite you to pray about how the Lord wants you to be a steward of the earth wherever you are. And, of course, we want you to celebrate and sympathize with the narwhal, a creature too awesome to actually be real, except that it is. The unicorn of the sea, the narwhal, Monodon monoceros. So, always be you, unless you can be a narwhal, and then always be a narwhal.
Unless, of course, you can be Jesus, and then you should be Jesus.
All right, it was bad enough when he said be a narwhal, but, now you're going to the parish where we're like, how heretical is communion hymn? Oh, we're all Jesuses.
We are all called to be Jesus, to be his body.
Yes, it's just a fine line of, I think this is pushing it a little too far.
Heretical church music. That's another episode for another time. And until then, remember to
live your faith.
Love your faith.
Share that love.
Narwhal.
Narwhal.
Narwhal?
Narwhal.
Narwhal.
Now all our comments will be about how you're using a straw.